In the darkest night, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Oh, surviving together, victorious, never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey, everyone. How you doing tonight? Sorry I'm a bit late, but when I got on, I noticed that StreamYard seemed to be running really slow. There was a big lag, so I'm like, okay, we're just going to restart everything and hope that fixes it. So we'll see. I hope that fixed it. Welcome to Surviving Together, a safe space for trauma survivors to connect and build community on their healing journeys, as well as providing trauma-related education for all. How is everyone doing tonight? We've got Crystal and Carmel here so far tonight. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. We'll have some more people, I'm sure, kind of trickling in as they get the notification for the live, since it's a bit late. I do notice just a slight lag between the words that are coming out of my mouth and actual StreamYard. So I don't know what's going on. If it gets too annoying, let me know and we'll figure it out then, I guess. Hey, Crystal, how you doing? Little exhausted? Oh, I'm sorry, still at work. Oh, I appreciate you dropping by. I really appreciate it. Guys, check out Crystal just had her newest anthology release. She's a part of a book called More Than Your Diagnosis, and you can get that on Amazon.com. And Deidre Gore is here. Hi, Deidre. How you doing? I am glad you guys are here. So today we're going to be talking about something that doesn't get talked a whole lot about. And it is because a lot of people feel deep shame and secrecy around these issues, around these behaviors. And these are called body-focused repetitive behaviors. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. I don't see the crowns on my side, but when I'm in the chat on other people's things, I do see the crowns, and it has to do with your participation in the chat is my understanding. So I think it's like who chats the most in that particular chat, who comments the most in the chat. It's not like they have announced any reward system that I know of. I mean, you get experience points or something, but it's not like I know that you can turn those experience points into anything useful or valuable that I know of. If anybody knows any different, let me know, but I've not been able to figure it out. Sorry, guys. It's hot up here and I can't have the fan on while you guys are here. The AC is not fixed yet. Supposedly somebody's going to be coming out this week to fix it. Sorry, I'm noticing hairs out of place here. That's going to drive me absolutely nuts. Yeah, a contest over who's going to be queen or king of the chat. Exactly. I haven't looked into it beyond what I've told you. So yeah, if anybody figures out how to turn these experience points into something actually useful or valuable, let me know. Otherwise, yeah, you get your crown for the day. So, what are body focused repetitive behaviors? BFRD. These are things like skin picking, and this can be picking at your face, whether it's a pimple or not. A lot of people will pick at their hands, picking at your scalp, which I didn't realize that that was part of this. Picking at your cuticles, nail biting, lip biting, cheek biting, um, hair pulling. And by hair pulling, I mean actually pulling out your hair, not just like tugging on it or playing with it, not that sort of thing. I'm interested, these are things that people can realize they're doing, and they're things that sometimes are what they call semi-conscious, almost automatic. We don't really realize we're doing it until at some point when we're doing it, we go, oh, I'm doing that, right? And these behaviors can be what they call focused or habitual. And so the focused are the ones where you're going to notice them more. And they're also the ones that tend to be more extreme in terms of the damage that can be done. Whereas, habitual, we generally will stop once we notice them. Until I really got into the research about this, I did not realize how many of these things that I actually do. That was really eye-opening for me. And I want to just say a few more highs. Hi, Kid Rock. Hi, Magooch. I hope that you guys are doing well tonight. Crystal says, I've chewed the insides of my cheeks ever since I got teeth. I can see it in the photos as a small child. I don't know when I started doing it, but, Jen and I have joked on screen before, calling each other cheek chewers, because I never knew it was like a thing until I met somebody else who admitted that they did it. I know I've noticed I do it in times of increased stress and increased anxiety, which gets us to, why do we do these types of behaviors? Well, there's a wide variety of reasons. It can be anything from generalized anxiety, heightened stress situations, boredom, to OCD. A lot of times you'll see, if you look at the research or the therapy people talking about it, they will call it a form of OCD, which it can be. But my understanding from looking at this deeper is that it doesn't necessarily have to be. And it has to do with the compulsion aspect, because not everybody has the compulsion to do it. It may just be an impulse. And I know it seems like a weird distinction, or maybe, like a non-distinction. But when we're classifying it, like according to the DSM, it, makes a difference, that way. And it also, whether or not it rises to the level of something that falls under OCD, has to do with whether or not it interferes with your life. Like, how long are you spending doing this? Are you picking at your skin for hours and hours a day, every day? And Is it preventing you from, then going out in public and doing things with other people because you're embarrassed about the way you look? So those sort of things are the differences as to, whether or not it's going to fall under OCD. Is the behavior an actual disorder? Or is it a reaction? Is it a response to simply heightened stress? Trauma, unresolved trauma can actually result in these types of behaviors as well, particularly childhood trauma. But it's not limited to childhood. It can be any sort of trauma, PTSD, trauma from abusive relationships. So at any point in your life, you can develop these. And these behaviors too, they don't necessarily, once you start, you've never stopped. Like from the time you started this till now, you've always done them every day. You can go in cycles. People can go through periods of time where they do them and then they don't do them. And oftentimes you will find this related to how well people are managing their stress, their mental health, their anxiety. So at times where we're feeling that heightened stress, that heightened anxiety, we're going to be engaging in these behaviors much more. It is a fascinating topic in terms of, one, that it can stem from trauma, and two, like trauma, there is often this deep-seated feeling of shame, embarrassment, guilt, secrecy around it. The stats are upwards of 1 in 20, or about 5% of the population engages in some form of body-focused repetitive behavior from all of those causes combined that I list. ADHD can be another one. And it's interesting because why do we do these? Why do we do these behaviors that are harming our body, really? And actually, it is a form of self-harm, which I never thought about it like this. That was something that when I heard it, I heard a therapist and she was talking about it. My eyes went wide as saucers and I had to stop it and I had to replay that section. I said, "What do you mean this is a form of self-harm?" So, well, it is. I mean, something like, cutting and suicide attempts are on the far extreme, depending on the severity of the picking or the biting is going to depend on the amount of harm we do to our bodies, but it is a physical harm to our body. Hey, Shell, how you doing? Thanks for dropping by. Just saying hi, listening in the background. All right. That's awesome. Kid Rock, I don't know if I said hello to you, but hello. I'm glad you're here. So thinking about it in that way, that really struck me because I never thought about myself as somebody engaging in self-harm, but really it's true. And, we're not talking about the person who just, picks at their cuticles, for half a second and is like, oh, that's an annoyance type thing and moves on. But when you're picking to the point of causing, serious harm to your skin, to the point of bleeding, picking the scabs once they've healed and you're making it worse, or picking at a small area, say on our face, and then moving to another area, and then moving to another area, and moving to another area. There's nothing there that needs to be really done, but we keep doing it. And the underlying psychology behind it, or I should say the underlying physiology behind it, is, this is a self-soothing mechanism. It is a way of calming our nervous system. So when our feelings inside are in chaos, when we're feeling overwhelmed, if we're not necessarily to the level of triggered by something, it's not to where our fight, flight, or freeze is taking over. It's below that, but it's one of those coping mechanisms, and it's a negative coping mechanism. There's nothing positive that we are actually getting out of it, because the result is actually harm to ourselves. But in the moment, it is a way of feeling in control of ourselves. In the moment, often people who engage in these behaviors, particularly, when it's for this prolonged period of time, even 5-10 minutes, you're 100% present in doing this. I mean, you are focused on doing this, and the outside world, your internal stimuli, or whether it's chaos in the outside world because of the environment that you're in, or factors, that are outside your control, your finances, or, in a relationship, somebody who's there. It is a way of just pushing that all out. And we are totally focused on this behavior. Well, why is it repetitive? Well, a couple of reasons. One, it's a self-soothing mechanism, but it only works in the short term. So it doesn't resolve our actual issue, whatever is causing that stress, whatever is causing us to feel overwhelmed, that underlying trauma that is causing this, essentially a trauma response out of our bodies. So when something comes up again, we repeat the behavior because our bodies have learned to cope in this way. Or I should say our brain has learned to cope in this way. There's also been some studies that it releases dopamine, and that makes us feel good. And again, it's a very short, small burst of dopamine. So it's nothing that is going to last us. It can't solve these underlying problems. So we go back to these. I also read about, somebody had put it in the context of 5 stages. And briefly to go over that, they talk about 1, you've got the compulsion. And so you do the act. Afterwards, you feel bad about the fact that you did it because you caused harm to yourself. Maybe you feel you look ugly now. It was something you said you weren't going to do again. The ramifications of what happened. And so we feel shame and we feel guilt, and we just feel awful about ourselves because we did this. And then there can come the stage of, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. You make this decision and say, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to fix this. And we'll get into some, ways of how do we move away from these repetitive behaviors in a minute. So you make this decision, I'm not going to do it again. And then after a while, you're seeing the benefits of not doing it again. Your skin's clearing up, your nails look better. You feel better about yourself because you've accomplished your goal of not doing it. You're going out more because you feel better about the way you look. I also learned in this research, and this is a total aside, that face touching is a habitual thing. And I didn't even realize, but it is with me. But I'm scratching because I have allergies and I'm itchy because of the allergies. So apologize, guys. And then the fifth stage is you end up going back to step one. It's kind of like any bad, a negative coping skill that we do, that after a while you feel, I got a handle on this. I can have another cigarette, or I can have one drink, or I can smoke one joint if that's like your drug of choice. Any of these things where we're like, I got a handle on it. I got a handle on it. I can stop anytime, right? And you end up repeating the whole cycle over again. It is fascinating to me, the number of ways that, all of these different causes that can lead to these behaviors, and how little it is talked about. I can honestly say, I think, other than joking with Jen about the cheek chewing thing, just because I had never come across anybody who had done it, I have never spoken about this publicly. I don't even know that I've spoken about this privately. There are a few people in my life who know about it, but only generally because they've caught me at it. I went on a date last night, and he said he might watch the show tonight. And if he's watching, I guess we'll see if a second date comes after this. I said, I don't know if this is the first one you really want to watch. You might want to start with some of my other videos. Oh, it is getting warm in here, guys. I am sorry, but I can't have the windows open because of the ambient noise outside. But I am going to have to put my hair up, because having this down is just, whoa. I don't know if you can see the redness starting in my face. Hi, Rick. How you doing? Judge, welcome. I'm glad you're here with us tonight. Yeah, cutting is a form of self-harm. Definitely a way to feel something, to feel control over your own emotions. When all of your emotions are out of control. And that's, why we engage in these negative coping skills, and why it's so important that we, one, realize that we're doing it, realize that it is harmful to us, and then figure out a way to be able to move away from these repetitive behaviors, these body-focused repetitive behaviors. Believe in yourself before anything. Believe in yourself first before anything. Welcome. I think I've seen you once or twice in here before, but thank you for joining us here tonight. Says 7 years clean from fent and crystal and still catch yourself scratching and picking. Yeah. Certain drugs definitely can cause you to engage in this type of behavior. Generally, my understanding, at least from the research that I did, is they wouldn't put that sort of repetitive behavior under the OCD at all, because according to the DSM, it has to not be related to any medical condition, mental hallucinations, like feeling something crawling under your skin, thinking something is crawling under your skin, or substance use. But the outcome is still the same, right? Crystal, I will get to your comment in a minute. We are going to speak about some things that you can do, and you have absolutely hit the nail on the head with that. I'm also afterwards going to put up a couple of different websites that you can go to for support and more information. As well as I have a video that I'm going to play here, a part of a video that I'm going to play here in a minute, and that has to do with habitual reversal training, which is one way of helping to move away from these behaviors. Something I found interesting is that in most cases, it's a self-soothing, a way to feel in control. And I heard one person who said that usually when it's related to ADHD, it's used as a stimulation. You're doing, you're focused on one thing, but yet you might be doing this semi-consciously, because it's a way to keep your hands busy. Your hands need to be doing something, especially like if you're watching TV or working on the computer or reading or something. So it's actually a form of stimulation then versus, soothing and trying to calm yourself down. So what can you do about it? How can we solve this? Well, part of it does depend on what your cause is. If you're doing this because you have unresolved trauma, deal with your unresolved trauma. And a lot of times, once that is dealt with, your brain does not feel the need to engage in these behaviors because your nervous system's calmed down. You don't have all this unregulated emotion inside you. So you just simply don't have a need for it, and it can just go by the wayside. Talk therapy can be very helpful for some people in trying to become aware of what their specific cause is, and then mapping out a plan as to how to deal with it. There are certain medications that can help. Generally, SSRIs, which are, a form of antidepressant, sometimes anxiety medication. Again, it's going to depend on your cause. There's 2 supplements that were mentioned by multiple people that have shown to be fairly helpful in dealing with this. And one is called inositol, inositol. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And then NAC, NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine. And they're both supplements. You can get them over the counter, and both are showing to the numbers are, showing that they've been fairly helpful in helping people stop these repetitive behaviors. The science behind it, I do not know. That I did not get into, so I can't tell you on that, but really fascinating. There was this computerized program training that was put on by a guy from MIT, and it was really short. And honestly, it was too short for me to truly understand what he was talking about. But it was some form of training where he said you were shown pictures of you doing the action, like picking your skin or whatever it was that, whatever behavior that you're dealing with. And you had a joystick and you can either pull it closer or push it away. And they had these different control groups, and the people who were training themselves and pushing them away found that they had subsequently reported fewer compulsions to do this. So to me, it's just kind of another behavioral therapy type of situation. And, he was touting it for areas where people don't have access to professional mental health and can be a substitute for that. So a lot of interesting research being done in this area, and who knows 5 years from now where we will be. I will make a note to do that, DeAudrey, but I am going to type them into the comments right now. Let's see, till cysteine. So there you go. Those are the 2 supplements that were mentioned by multiple therapists who I was in my research. Excuse me. I want to talk about HRT. So this is habitual reversal training, because a lot of the other things that I have to mention are really, they fall under the second step within habitual reversal training. And I think that going through the first step is, extremely important as well. And essentially, your first step with this type of training is one, awareness, being aware of when you do it. And this is there's a piece of a video I want to show you that goes through how do you map your awareness, because he really went through a lot of good questions on what to ask ourselves and to write these things down. And you're probably not going to be able to answer them, the first time you just sit down with this. You may have a situation where you find yourself doing the compulsion, or doing the behavior, and then having, recognizing it and having to stop then and kind of go through these questions and try and answer, because you may have several answers to the various pieces of it. The second is competing response, or creating a substitute behavior, and also trying to figure out, when you have your awareness, putting in place something to prevent you from actually doing it. So if you notice that your scalp is itchy or tingling, or you feel this tension rising in your fingers before you start to engage in a behavior, putting things in place then to try and prevent you from actually doing it. If you notice that you're always doing it at bedtime, or if you notice that you're doing it while you're watching TV, let's take picking for an example, wearing gloves, that's going to be a preventative measure. One gal said she wears fake nails now, press on fake nails, because, and she's got really long ones, because she said she can't pick easily with them. And she was also a biter, and skin puller at her cuticles and stuff. And can't really get to those easy. She can't get to her nails. If she tries to bite those acrylic nails, she's like, she can't bite through them. And so it really helped her with multiple different types of behaviors. Hey, See No Evil, how you doing tonight? Grateful. I'm glad you're here as well. I'm glad that I heard your vacation went well. Grateful says the reviews are great for Inositol. That's awesome. You've heard of it. Yeah, I had never heard of it before I started doing this research. And the third piece of HRT is support. So having someone, one, just to be able to talk about what you're going through, but also somebody who may have noticed you doing it in the past. Maybe they've noticed some correlations and you can talk to them about those things and they can kind of help you with your awareness as to when or the places that you normally do this. Or if you have somebody who lives with you, they might be able to help you stop. Because like I said, sometimes this is a semi-conscious thing. We're not really aware that we're doing it. And if they're walking by and see you, picking at your nails, they may be going, stop, 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 stop. And so they can kind of be somebody to help you through this process. But before we talk about the second step, which is the competing response step, which is finding substitute behaviors, I want to play this gentleman's video, and he calls this scamp in terms of detailing your awareness. And he goes through what scamp means. And I would just be repeating everything that he says. So I thought I would share this with you instead, because he definitely says it well. So let's play this.
You've got to understand what SCAMP means for you. So SCAMP is an acronym for sensory, cognitive, affective, motor, and place. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry, we'll get to it. So this is what I would like you to do as you're going through this video. I'm going to link a paper below in my description for you to print out and start following along through this behavior. Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? Let's say I took skin picking. Do I do it slowly? Do I do it quickly? Do I gouge? Am I looking for anything specific? Sensory-wise, them that, hey, they're there, they're easily there to be pulled. That's a sensation to pay attention to. Or if you have a scab on the top of your head, it might start to itch. You're feeling something before that behavior happens. In the middle of it, like I said, are you looking for a specific texture? Are you looking for something that will possibly satisfy your brain? After the behavior, are you looking for a certain sensation? You need to feel that smoothness. Pay attention to yourself and try to answer these questions the best that you can. Is there anything that you can feel? So when we're looking for C, cognitive, we are looking for thoughts before, during, and after. Are you giving yourself permission to pull? Think about it. Pay attention to the thoughts. You've gone 3 weeks without pulling. You actually kind of deserve this. Do you have any thoughts? Or what I find with a lot of these is that they're not very linear like that the thought doesn't just follow along that the person falls for. Sometimes it's just like in the back of their head somewhere of like, hey, this is usually a time that happens. What thoughts or beliefs do I have about this behavior? Do I think it's good? Do I think it's bad? Do I think it's Do I care that it happens? What about what my brain says about relapses? Am I beating myself up because of that? Am I learning from those experiences? Write this down on paper. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to your behavior specifically. Think about those thoughts. So we're going to look at the A, affective. These are feelings that you are getting before, during, and after. Do you feel an increasing tension before the behavior happens? Are you feeling an urge of some kind? Are you feeling stress? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling bored? Are you feeling happy? Do you feel good or satisfied during? How long does this feeling last? How long until that urge is satisfied? Do you ever feel disappointed, angry, or frustrated after it's over? Is there shame or is there guilt? When you feel that urge or tension, will it go away without you doing the behavior? How does the behavior affect who you are as a person? What feelings do you have about yourself? Are they negative or are they positive? Think about the feelings before, during, and after for your specific behavior. So up to your head rest, you playing with your hair a little bit, and then you're feeling around for specific hair, and then it starts. You got to know, did it just happen? Or is there kind of a progression for that? What hands am I using? Do I use my left hand? Do I use my right hand? Do I use both? What do I do with the skin or hair after? Some people might put that to their lips. Some people might bite the bulb. Some people might just discard it. Same thing with the skin. It's important to know what happens afterwards. Also, am I aware that the behavior is even done? Am I catching myself 5 minutes in, saying, man, I've been doing this for 5 minutes and I just realized how much hair I just pulled or how much skin that I just picked? Or do you just know every single time the behavior happens? So let's look at the P for place. It's super important to know exactly where you are. Are you in your bedroom? Are you in the car? Are you in your bathroom? Are you on your bed? Where are you most vulnerable when these moments happen? I find that most people tend to do this behavior in bed. Only when I'm sitting on the right side of the couch. Only when I'm sitting on that couch that is facing the wall that I know no one's really ever going to see me. Or it only happens when I look in the mirror. It's also important to know, am I using certain tools, such as tweezers, needles, or any other tool for this behavior? When you feel an urge to do this behavior, are you going to that specific place or are you doing it right then? These are all questions to kind of ask yourself, pay attention to. So when you are able to fill all of this out, this is called your SCAMP profile. And you might be thinking, why is this important? Why am I doing this? But this is the first part of the treatment. Awareness training. We've got to know what is happening, what is sometimes driving you to do this. So
StreamYard is just not cooperating very much today. Sorry, guys. And I know it's StreamYard because I got a message drop down. I don't know if you guys could see it on your side, but I could see it from mine. And it's like, sorry, StreamYard's being unresponsive. So I don't know if it's just overwhelmed or what, but I will definitely pin that video in the description so you guys can listen to that again in an unchoppy manner, as slow as you need to, as many times as you need to. And then, like he said, in his video description, he has a link to a printout that you can do that lists each of those. So everything that he put on the screen with the before, during, and after is listed on that. But his explanations, I think, are really good, giving a lot of examples, questions to ask yourself. And that was probably the most comprehensive explanation of the awareness that I found, that I thought was really helpful for being able to have a full understanding of our awareness, not just, I'm doing it now. Okay, well, I'm doing it now, but I need to look at my feelings. I need to look at what, where I am. Like you said, is motor, are you using your different hands? Are you using implements to do it? What is your case? So all of that information is going to help you in when you look at the second step, the competing response or your substitute behavior. Because if you do use implements to do your picking, whether that's tweezers or needles or whatever, putting those away. If you notice that you're always doing it at a certain time or in your bedroom, or if you're picking at your skin, you're always doing it in front of mirrors, covering your mirrors. Anything that you can do to help prevent being in those situations, right? It's kind of like, when you're in active recovery, as an addict. Don't go out with those friends who you always partied with. Don't go out to the bar. Don't stop by that gas station that you always bought your 12-pack at. So trying to do these things that can help us not engage in the behaviors. Now, what are things that we can do when we notice that we're engaging in these behaviors? Or if we're catching ourselves at that beginning stage, if we notice that our fingers are tingling, or, the tension is rising within us, and we're starting to want to go to that bathroom to look in the mirror, or we're wanting to reach for those tweezers, or if you notice that you're biting your lip or chewing on your cheek, what can you do? For a lot of the things with like lips or cheek chewing, anything that's like an oral stimulation, so chewing on straws, ice chips, lollipops, anything that you can substitute for having something to do with your mouth, right? That's not a negative. Like, don't start biting your fingernails instead. For picking issues, or just anything, or hair pulling, anything to do with your hands, there are things like, and Crystal mentioned this, fidget toys. There was a lady who I listened to a TED talk by her, and she started doing art. But she started doing art, but then she said one day she was in London and she was riding the tube, and she ran out of sketch paper, and she noticed she was starting to get really anxious. She could feel a panic attack, wanting to come on. She needed to do something. And she noticed there were just these discarded newspapers everywhere. So she just used those and drew, and chalk was kind of her medium, and just did these drawings. And so when you put up the newspaper page, it just looks like a full drawing. You can't see any newsprint in it, with just this newspaper around the edges. And then she just started giving them out. And she says she's given out 15,000 of them so far. That's amazing. And she's like, for each one that I give out, there's usually a conversation that comes along with it. Because she always explains why she's doing it. She says, I'm drawing because I have a skin picking disorder, and it's part of my mental health. And this is helping me redirect my energy into something positive that is calming to me. And the amount of people then who start talking to her about their mental health issues, or the fact that they also deal with skin picking, and thought they were the only one, or didn't realize that other people really dealt with this thought that they were a weirdo and that they just couldn't, it's like, why can't I stop doing this? I'm just, such a loser, or whatever. Just really amazing. Modeling clay was something else that came up, because you can deal with your hands, stress balls, anything, anything to keep your hands busy. Somebody mentioned something that are called picking stones. And I know, Crystal, you said stones, and I'm not sure if this is what you meant, but apparently they're these porous stones. I kind of imagine it like small volcanic rock, and you paint, just put an acrylic paint over it and let it dry. And when you feel the need to pick, you grab one of these stones and you can pick the paint off of the stone. And that kind of satisfies that picking need without doing harm to your body. One lady says she does art as well, but she also lets the paints dry on her palettes. So when they're completely dry and she's, feeling that urge to pick, she'll just pick the paint off the palette. She's a plastic, so it, peels off, and that satisfies that. Okay, Crystal says she is just talking about regular stones, have a texture, flat or smooth. And that may work for some people as well. They're not picking stones then. These would just be stones to have in your hand, and just probably run your fingers over them. Just something to keep your fingers busy, right? I don't have my stress rollers. I have basically these it's 2 steel rollers that are attached, and you just roll them around each other. And you can get them in small sizes for small hands. You can get the brand I got was called Ono. I lost mine to my son because he took them, and when he was doing school, that was something. When after he got kind of bored with the fidget spinners, he found that fairly helpful. And lastly, there is something called Keen, Keen, and it looks like a Fitbit, basically, a Fitbit watch, but it vibrates every time you go to pick. So I'm sure it vibrates if you're, just scratching as well. So if you have it on a scratch, but it vibrates, and you can say, well, what just happened? Oh, no, I had an itch that I actually had to scratch. It wasn't, something that I was doing for picking, but that's great for, especially when we're doing these as a semi-conscious thing, or these habitual body focused repetitive behaviors where we're not as conscious about when we do them, or if you find yourself doing them and engaged in it for a longer period of time. They likened it to sometimes, people can get involved in these things for like hours. Because like I said, it's almost a mindfulness, because you're so present in what you're doing and you're so focused, but it's almost becomes a dissociative state for them, that they could be picking for hours and not realize it kind of until they're done, and kind of come out of this state and go, oh, how long have I been doing this? So something like a Keen watch, I have no idea how much they cost. That sounds like a wonderful thing. I used to be horrible with my face, particularly in my teenage years, and into college, stress and social stress and all of that. And I think, part of it was just a way to deal with stress. It was partly, I think, a self-soothing mechanism for all the unresolved trauma that I had at that point in time. But also, I think there was the subconscious piece of me that, when I was done, I knew that my face was all awful, and it was an excuse then to hide from other people, because my social skills were not that great. Because of my childhood trauma, I didn't develop the social skills that I really needed to be able to effectively interact and make friends. So it was 100% a way of being able to put a barrier between myself and other people. Even if I had to go to school, but then you get the ridicule from that, and you feel bad about yourself. And, that's kind of why I went through those stages, because I definitely can understand that, of doing the compulsion, feeling bad about yourself, making a decision not to do it, not doing it for, even if it was for a day, but then the cycle repeating itself again. And so what we're trying to do by the awareness and the competing responses is to break that cycle, to train ourselves to be able to do something else. And it really, really means that we have to be hyper aware of when, why, how we do these behaviors. So I do encourage you, if this is something that you suffer from, if you find yourself engaged in one or more of these body focused repetitive behaviors, whether they're focused or habitual, to go through that checklist, that SCAMP checklist. And this does require writing down, because like I said, you may notice things, you may know things off the bat out of your head, right? Like I know for my cheek chewing, it's always my right side. Always. I mean, that's like my go-to. Why? I have no clue. And I'm not conscious of it. And I can stop myself now when I notice it. But I rarely notice the first time it starts. And I actually did have one doctor when I was having something looked at inside my mouth. I think it was my tonsils or something, and he noticed. He just kind of did an analysis, of everything in my mouth, and he was looking at my cheek, and he goes, "You chew your cheek, don't you?" And that was the first time I had anybody, dentist, doctor, anybody mention it. And he's like, "Yeah, I see it a lot." I was like, "Wow, that's amazing." I think I mentioned all my, any other means of regulating your emotions, regulating your nervous system. So the things we normally talk about, practicing mindfulness, breathing, any of the breathing techniques, yoga, hypnosis, any of the soma exercises that we've mentioned, that we've gone over. And if you want to know more about those, you can, watch that video that we did on the soma exercises. Those are all going to be great options for you as well, in terms of replacing that behavior or doing something to regulate your emotional state. Because like I said, if it's just from a generalized anxiety, heightened stress, boredom cause, simply doing the awareness part and finding the replacement activities to do, I think could be highly, highly effective. But when we're talking about this, talking about these behaviors stemming from places of deeper wounds, of any form of trauma, I think being able to go back to ourselves, being able to go back to our body and calming that parasympathetic nervous system down, and bringing ourselves back to baseline is extremely, extremely important. So incorporating these other techniques. So that's part of the awareness, I think, is also realizing, what is your particular cause? Does this stem from OCD? Does this stem from ADHD? Does this stem from unresolved trauma? Does it stem from multiple places? Because multiple causes, because that's possible too. Crystal asked, did that doc make you feel bad about doing it? You know, he didn't. When he started talking about it, I really thought he was going to. I mean, I immediately was on the defensive. He asked the question, and I definitely took a big pause before I answered him and was looking at him and kind of gauging how he was asking as to whether or not, if I answered truthfully, was he, going to come down on me for it? And he didn't. And I was like, yeah, I do. And he goes, I can tell you've been doing it for a long time. And I said, yeah. And often I don't even notice that I'm doing it. And I think I did ask him about it. And when he said, oh, I see it. And I said, is this fairly common then? And he was like, yeah, I see it an awful lot. Sometimes it's on the inner cheeks. Sometimes it can be on the inner sides of the lower lips or the upper lips. Really anywhere inside your mouth that your teeth can reach. But people do kind of have a go-to place. And that was the first time I had ever heard that somebody else did it. And then Jen and I talking, that was the first actual person that I had met who said that they did it as well. I was like, okay, yeah, the doctor said other people do it, but it wasn't like anybody in my orbit that I knew did this. Well, probably more people than I realize. It's not something we talk about. Because really, I mean, why would you? We feel bad about the fact that we do this. So 1 in 20 people, upwards of 1 in 20 people, depending on the type of behavior. I saw anywhere between like 0.5% up to 5%, depending on the specific behavior that they were talking about. I don't have the stats on that breakdown. So whether it's nail biting, hair pulling, skin picking, I think they kind of lumped all the skin picking in one, regardless of where you're doing the picking at. It's so much more common than we realize, and it's something that we don't talk about. Something that can cause us such deep shame and such guilt. So just like I talk about with trauma, I think it's really important that we realize how common it is and that people talk about these things so that we can feel that connection and go, I'm not alone. So this can be a trauma response. Like I said, it could also, come about because of those, other causes. So regardless of the reason that you do it, first and foremost, take the pressure off yourself in terms of any of the shame, any of the guilt, all those negative, bad feelings you feel about yourself because you do it. It's not going to serve you any purpose in healing. Exact same that we say with our trauma. You're not at fault because of the trauma. How your body has responded to that trauma. This is a coping mechanism that your brain came up with. I'm pretty darn sure that I can say for each and every one of you who have any of these type of repetitive behaviors, you didn't one day just go, I'm really overwhelmed. I'm really stressed. What would be a really good outlet for me? Let me start biting my nails down to the quick, or pulling my cuticles off, or picking my skin until I bleed. I doubt any one of you consciously made that decision. So take the pressure off yourself, remove that guilt, and allow yourself to heal. So a lot of information I threw at you guys tonight. I hope that it was helpful. I really am interested if any of you who are watching this, particularly on replay, to comment. Let me know. Is this something that you have felt? Is this something that you've noticed with somebody else? I think it is a lot more prevalent than we realize. And through talking about it, we can make connection. Now, of course, none of you guys are ever required to reveal anything personal about yourself. So never feel obligated. But it does help to share. Audrey says, interesting how our broken brains come up with such similar coping mechanisms. Absolutely, right? Around the world, because we are an international group. And no matter what the cause of your stress was or the cause of your trauma, how similar these responses are. So I'm really glad that I address this today, and not just because I think it's an important topic that we need to discuss and how to be able to move away from these repetitive behaviors, but the eye-opening points, for me, that it's on the spectrum of self-harm. Realizing how many of these behaviors I have or have had in the past. I don't engage in all of them now, but things that definitely have become habitual for me, that I didn't even realize. I know for me, in times of high stress, I will scratch my scalp, but it's overnight. It's when I'm sleeping, right? So like the wearing gloves to bed thing, that makes so much sense to me. Or there have been times where I've purposely, cut my nails short because then I can't, I can't hurt my scalp or anything. I'm not consciously choosing to do that. I'm unconscious at the time, right? So all I can do is try and do something to prevent it. Wear gloves before I go to bed. Make sure my nails are short enough that I can't cause myself any damage, even if I was to scratch. And to address the underlying problem, address the stress, address the source of the anxiety. Do something else to calm myself down before bed. Perhaps I need to do a meditation session in the evening before bed. And that might help get me in the right mindset by calming myself down, or doing some yoga before bed, even 10 minutes or so. So I have learned so much from all of this, and different things that I can do, small little changes that I can make in my life that can definitely help move myself away from some of these repetitive behaviors. Geometry says, I also do the worst damage in my sleep. See, I thought I was the only one. I thought, it was like, God damn it. I woke up again and I'm like, ow. Like, what happened? Did I bang my head? Did the cat bite me? Because that's always a possibility too. Or scratch me or something. Realizing, nope, did it to myself. So yeah, that's it on that subject. I will just throw out and remind you, Carmel threw up here. I'm also going to put up, whoops, cancel. So there's my GoFundMe for the book launch. My book chapter is due in 2.5 weeks, 25th, I think. So the rough draft is done. I've been kind of breaking down my goals in terms of the money that I'm looking after. Thank you to everyone who has donated thus far from the bottom of my heart. I am almost at the point where I can book my ticket. I am working with Janet because that's her edge of the world. She knows a lot about Vancouver, and she's helping me get on the best airline and working with the flights and figuring that out. So shout out to her. Thank you so much for helping with logistics with all of that. I'm just about the point where I have enough money for the flight. And now I'm just looking to raise about $500 for the book fees for this month. Because of my migraines in June, I was only able to work about part-time, 20 hours or less, which was really difficult. My son has really stepped up and helped me financially this month to make mortgage and cover my basic bills here for July. But the 500 for the book fees is a chunk of change. And so anything anybody can put towards that is helpful. If you can't use GoFundMe, I don't know if that's around the world. I do also have PayPal and CashApp, which you can find in the video description, or every video description. So you can click on any of mine and you'll find that as well. Little by little, you guys are gonna make this trip happen, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I do also want to just update you, let you know that I spoke to my contact in Buffalo, New York, and my plane ticket that I canceled for Florida last year, I can use that to go to Buffalo. So that plane ticket's covered. So I'm working with him to maybe in August or September get to Buffalo to be able to visit my childhood homes and schools in Rochester, which is the city right next door, and quite literally lay some of my trauma at the lawns of those places. Kind of a closure that I've been looking to do for a lot of years. So very excited about that. So a lot of things happening this year for me personally and for the channel. I know that this book and the book launch are going to be great for us and for the exposure to be able to get the word out that there is hope and healing, and there is a wonderful community here of like-minded individuals. And you guys, as I've said before, make this channel what it is. You are the most welcoming people, the most non-judgmental people that I have ever met. And that means the absolute world to me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. So with that, I think that I will. Oh my gosh. Woo, DeAudrey, I needed that. Holy criminy. You know, I don't know where you are with the crowns, but I give it to you for that one, for the taste. If Max Date is watching, she really is lovely and quite normal most of the time. Oh, thank you for that, honey. I definitely needed that. Oh boy. Boy. Oh my gosh, Crystal, that's amazing. She says those times of closures are amazing. For me, it was hearing that one of the places burnt down intentionally. I'm not gonna ask who did it, but yeah, if something's awful and it's just razed to the ground, as long as nobody, got hurt in the process, right? Because we don't wish that on anybody. That can be cathartic, very cathartic. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I know one of our subs lives about a half an hour outside of Rochester, and so we, kind of made some potential plans to meet up, hypothetically speaking. I know some people from some other YouTube communities that live in Buffalo, and hope to meet up with them and at least do a lunch or a dinner with all those people. So it will be absolutely wonderful. So if anybody's in the area, or it's an easy drive for you to Buffalo, I will definitely let you know the dates that I'll be there, and hopefully we can make an arrangement. And if you're near Vancouver, I don't think anybody in our place that I know of, or that I communicate with any regularity is in Vancouver's area. But if you are, I'm going to be up in that area at the beginning of November. So with that, guys, I'm going to sign out. Enjoy the outro, but remember, you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are loved just the way you are for who you are. So hugs and love for me. I will see you Saturday at 3 p.m. for Laugh Saturday. It is the first Saturday of the month. Happy belated Canada Day for all of those people in Canada, and happy early 4th to all of my US people. Surviving together, never alone. Bye.
Through the fire, through the rain, we have walked through endless pain. But we stand, we rise again, stronger now, we break the chain. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. Every tear, every scar tells the story of who we are. Not just survivors, but warriors too. With love as our armor, we see this through. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. We see you, we hear